This is a 2.5 horsepower economy brand hit and miss engine. It was made in 1922 by the Hercules Engine Company in Evansville, Indiana. We'll go over a little bit about components, lubrication, starting and operation. Fuel tank is in the base. There's no way to know how much fuel is in it because there's no sight glass gauge and you can't see into it. This is a fuel fill. I know from experience it'll run 2 8-hour shows on about a gallon of gas. The fuel tank vent is right here. This is the muffler. The exhaust valve is right here. This is a compression relief valve. The chrome tubing right here, that's a water drain, and this is a fuel line. The fuel comes out of the bottom of the tank. There's a check valve here. This is a better photograph of the fuel system. This pipe here comes out of the bottom of the fuel tank through the T. This is a check valve internal to that compression fitting. It's got a ballpoint pen spring in it and a piece of number 7 steel shot for a check valve. It's essential that works or fuel will run down the line and the engine will only pop once. Well, this is a McCoy oiler. I use Aeroshell 100 50 weight aviation oil in it. It burns clean and doesn't carbon foul the points. To start it, open up the fuel valve or the oil valve and open the oil vent. In light loads we look for about 6 drips per minute. In the sight glass under heavy load and working about 10 to 12 drips per minute. This is a water hopper. It's open to the atmosphere. It holds 2 gallons in it right now. It'll hold about 2.5. I use hot water to make it easier to start. There is a thermosiphon port from the exhaust valve up through the head into the water tank up to about here that must be covered, otherwise the head will overheat. Under a working load over time, this water will boil. Next, this is a primer cup. Some people, it was designed to pour fuel in, turn it counterclockwise, permit fuel to dribble directly into the cylinder near the points. Don't ever use it because once you open it, you'll never get it to close. This is the movable point. There's no spark plug on these engines. There's a set of points in a cavity off the side of the cylinder. This is the output from the Webster tripolar oscillator. Before there were battery coil ignition systems and magnetos, this was a very low tension or very low voltage spark generator. You can hold your finger on the output and not even feel it. It's that weak. It makes starting a challenge sometimes. For starting, we would retard the spark with this lever. This would be the run position. Moving down, this is the mixer. Before there were carburetors, there were mixers. Engine vacuum sucks fuel and air into the cylinder. That's all there is. There's no float bowl and no real atomization. That makes starting another challenge. Since there is no carburetor to govern engine speed is governed by a flyball governor. These are the fly balls. Centrifugal force throws these out, pushes a pin inside this pinion pivot. This makes a catch here that goes on a detent here, and this push rod then holds the exhaust valve open and drops out ignition. That's why it's called a hit and miss engine. When it fires, it's a bang, and then miss, 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 miss until the governor calls for more power. This is lubricated here with a twist grease cup. The main bearings are lubricated with twist grease cups. You spin these off, fill them with grease, and when you wind them down and feel resistance, you force grease into the bearings. I use a Zerk fitting on a refrigeration fitting on the crank because vibration would throw the grease cup off violently and hit people at shows. The piston pin Harold, when he rebuilt this, he built a new piston and a new piston pin. Piston pin is lubricated through this hole here. The push rod is lubricated here. There's a hole in the cam follower bearing that's lubricated here. The other lubrication points are easy to see. So we are just about ready to start it. The upright position is fully off. This engine is, when Harold rebuilt this, it's not at all stock. The entire operating range on this engine is about there, which is maximum fuel, and this is fuel off. For starting, we go to maximum. It sounds counterintuitive, but for high RPM, high power, we decrease the fuel setting, not increase. About there. It has enough compression, you cannot turn it over by hand against compression. Your finger is the choke. They load the cylinder with fuel at least twice. When it's good and juicy and dripping out of there, it might still not be enough. This engine only runs with this air damper closed. Spark is then retarded toward the rear of the engine for starting. Keep your right leg back because the crank becomes a kneecap remover. Also, fuel can shoot out the mixer and ignite you too. So here, we'll give it a try. This is the speed control here. The lever adjusts the setting of the fly ball governors. And the way this works, when these two catches catch here, that's the miss. It holds the exhaust valve open and drops out ignition. When the governor is satisfied, this catch catches and it misses. When the governor is calling for RPM, this catch comes out like that. That's a maximum RPM it can do, about 450. At its very lowest setting here, it's about 380. So there's only about a 60 RPM operating range. When running the engine, because there's no carburetor, it's necessary to adjust the mixture for each power output setting. Counterintuitive. The more power and the more RPM, you close the fuel valve. For idle power like this, you would open the fuel valve. Right now I'm demonstrating how the mixture control must be set for each RPM. You'll hear the engine trying to fire twice. What's happening there is engine fires once, but it's insufficient to satisfy the fly ball governor, so it has to try to fire again. The answer in this case is to open the fuel valve because it's at idle and no load. It'll begin to fire one time. This is the sound that it should have when it's running correctly. When it's too rich, it'll blow smoke and double hit. It won't do it now.